Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
I want to talk about something that's been really exciting around here, and that is our partnership with our friends at Ford. Ford Motor Company and your North Texas Ford, or your Texas Ford dealers have announced an expanded sponsorship of the UIL State Championships, solidifying Ford as the official automotive sponsor of the UIL. As part of the new commitment, Ford will now support all UIL extracurricular activities, including athletic, academic, and music state championship competitions. In addition to the sponsorship, Ford is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the prestigious Built Ford Tough Player of the Week Award and Player of the Year Award. This campaign has become one of the most celebrated in Texas high school sports, recognizing standout athletes, student athletes, for their on-field performance, leadership, and commitment to excellence. Ford will honor some of the most decorated players who have received the award over the years, with a special focus being on their achievements both in high school and beyond. Guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, all former Built Ford Tough Players of the Year, and we're partnering with them to amplify that. Dave Campbell's Texas Football, we're going to be amplifying the celebration through our partnership through all of our different platforms, so Texan Live, as well as here on this program and over the course of our social media as well, and TexasFootball.com. We're really, really excited to be partnering with Ford to help celebrate all of the things in Texas high school sports across the landscape. So more to come on that. There's more information on TexasFootball.com, but we're so thrilled to announce that partnership in Texas and the Texas Ford Dealers' expanded partnership as the official automotive sponsor of or partner of the UIL State Championships. We certainly are very, very excited about the future there.
Hello and welcome into a special edition of the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. Of course, we got your regulars here. I'm your host, Carter Yates. That is senior college writer Mike Craven. But we're joined by Ryan Monceaux of GoCougs.com to give a full preview of Houston's 2025 football season. Ryan, for 2024, I know Houston fans have probably tried to forget that year and the 4-8 season and the offense that was a tad lackluster. I don't know if I should even say a tad. I mean, they were second to last in the nation in touchdowns scored. But what did you see from Willie Fritz in year one that maybe has you excited for year two? Or did you see anything that has you excited for year two?
The team didn't quit. You know, there were some lowlights. You got shut out a couple times. You scored 3 points at Arizona. It wasn't good. But they never quit playing for him. And moving into the spring, they started building a roster that looks considerably better. And Willie Fritz has kind of seemed to be the same guy through all of it. And I think the players have really bought into him. And that's made a huge difference.
What's been the biggest difference in just vibes and the ability to kind of cover this team with Fritz compared to what it was with Holgorsen? What are the kind of the main differences that you see in how they operate?
For those who are not watching on YouTube, Ryan has his eyes spread very wide. It looked like he was frozen for a second. He's still with us.
Yeah. It's night and day. The access, the friendliness from the staff, and, you know, it trickles down to the players. It's been a pleasure, even though it was terrible to watch last year. It's fun. And the access and the ability to interact with players and coaches virtually every day of the week for 6 months is, if it's not unparalleled, it's really surprising in this era of football.
So, Ryan, in this offseason, Houston already has to replace both its coordinators in year 2 of the Willie Fritz era. What is your excitement level for new offensive coordinator Slade Nagel? We'll talk about Austin Armstrong, the defensive coordinator, in a second. But on the offensive side, what are you excited for about Slade Nagel?
Last year, Kevin Barbay was the coordinator. He came from Mississippi State, where that staff had been fired. And he was never just a clean fit with what Willie wanted to do. Slade Nagel is a Willie guy, worked with him at Tulane. Other offensive coordinators worked for him at Tulane or played for Willie at Sam Houston State or wherever, Blinn, going back. And so I think this is a much better fit. They also have incredibly better athletes at pretty much every offensive position. So I think you're going to see it's going to look more like what Willie wanted it to be. The defensive side, you lost a star, and you bring in Austin Armstrong, who had been at Florida. The guys seem to be buying in, but time will tell. I know it's a fairly complex system that he's wanting to put in. You get a little break early in the schedule so they can iron some things out. But that side of the ball, I'm less knowledgeable about, just because there's a lot of balls kind of up in the air.
Yeah, when I was there for the magazine, he kind of said his system's like the Bill Belichick, Nick Saban kind of defensive system where, he wants it to appear complex, but then be pretty simplistic for the players. But you need guys to go do that.
Those are two pretty good names to compare your system to.
Right. He's a Southeastern guy, first time in Texas. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, because I agree with Ryan. Like, they lost a star in Shield Wood. You'd imagine the offense gets better. The defense takes a slight step back. You just hope the step on the offense is bigger than the step defensively. Do you believe it can be offensively? Like, how good can this unit be if it clicks?
It all depends on the offensive line. U of H has been atrocious on the line the last 3 or 4 years. And you brought in a bunch of new guys, some transfers, and you think it's going to click. They seem to all, Willie said this summer that it's night and day, and that he had so much more confidence in the offensive line. If that's the case, then you've got some skill position players that can really get it done. You brought in Connor Wegman to play quarterback. I think he's competent. I think he's in a much better situation for himself mentally, and he's better physically. He's dealt with injuries for the last couple of years. I love Dean Connors coming over from Rice. He's sort of a Swiss Army knife. He does everything, but he has a quick first step. And I think they're going to do some different things with him, split him out wide, use him sort of like they use a tight end, even though he's a running back. But you're going to see him out wide. You're going to see him over the middle blocking. And the skill position, they brought in a guy named Harvey Broussard from Lafayette, or Louisiana Lafayette. He's 6'3", 6'4", but he has a huge catch radius. And I'm so interested to see what he can do with Connor Wegman, given some time by a pretty much completely rebuilt offensive line.
Well, I think Wegman's the big storyline for this offense coming into the year. Have there been any early returns that you've seen or heard being out at practice, Ryan, of how he's progressing in the new offensive system in the new school?
So it's still early. They've had 2 practices, yesterday and today as we're taping. And it looks good, but I mean, you're not seeing they're not in pads. They'll scrimmage next Wednesday night. So we'll start to get a sense of what exactly it's going to be. But there is a, as the young people say, vibe shift with Connor. It feels like the players are really bought into him. And there's optimism, which there hasn't been in a few years.
Yeah, I'm excited for Connor. You get to A&M, it's the end of the Jimbo Fisher era. It can be really hard to play quarterback for that guy. I mean, we saw what Haynes King's done at Georgia Tech. And so I think that kind of gives Houston fans some optimism there. Love what they did at wide receiver. I love what they've done at tight end. I think they added 2 really good football players at tight end. But the position group that they seemed to be most excited about, the depth, was at running back.
Yes.
How good do you think that group can be? Who are you excited to kind of see emerge as a bell cow, or do you think it'll be just a by committee situation all year?
So I think you have a number one in Rashawn Sanford. I think that he's going to do some special things, but they're not going to give it to one guy 20 plus times a game. Dean Connors will do some different things. And then there's a couple of young guys, DJ Butler and I'm blanking on his name. But there's young guys that fill out the back end. Stacy Sneed, who's in his 6th year, is also on this running back group. What you're going to see is some versatile guys. There's not a ton of power, but there's guys that can do different things. And I think you're going to see some interesting stuff from the running back group this year. I think it's interesting. They thought that was the most optimistic group they've got, because I think the receiver group is potentially better. But Willie Fritz is going to run the ball on 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th down. So we'll see if the receiver group is as good as I think they're going to be, or if it's the running back group that really carries it.
Yeah, what has you so excited about this wide receiver group? I mean, I know you talked about Harvey Broussard, a big target that Houston hasn't had in a couple years, but who are some other guys that make you say this group is really deep?
The first guy is Amari Thomas from UAB, and the players have raved about him, just his hard work and his dedication. There's a kid that's going to be a redshirt freshman from New Orleans who by the name of Kobe Young. And I was talking to another receiver today who said he is radical. I was like, what does that even mean? He's like, he is such a talent that it's going, if he can reach that potential, he's got first day draft kind of aura about him. That's a lot to live up to for a guy that really hasn't played. He was injured last year, but they're excited about him. Mekhi Muse, who's in his 2nd year, he came over from Georgia. They really, really like him. He's coming off an injury. That'll be a little interesting to see. And then Stephon Johnson, who is a Houston kid who's been in the program for 5 years. I'm told that he is finally reaching his potential, and he is starting to play like a senior star. If he can do that, then Connor's got a lot of options in the offense.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. Like, just a quick count. Like, there's going to be 6 or 7 new transfers starting on offense with a new coordinator. We talked about the defense. It's probably the same defensively. Probably 5 or 6 new transfer starters defensively with the new defensive coordinator. Is it concerning at all that pretty much a reset button had to be hit going into year 2, and it feels kind of year 1 and a lot of the moving parts, or is that just what college football is at this point?
Well, I think it's certainly what college football is, but this is, you knew that you needed a talent makeover before year 1, and you knew it wasn't going to happen going into that first season. So this is, Willie got a mulligan, frankly, for what happened last year. The way he's moving in recruiting is certainly going to help, because you've got some guys out of this state, out of Louisiana, that U of H has just not recruited in a generation, maybe more.
Yeah.
So if you can hang on to guys like that, it obviously starts with Keyshawn Henderson, you've got something cooking down the road. But I really think in somebody's position like U of H, you're going to see 3, 4, 5, 6 this year. I believe 7 is the right number of transfers on offense to start, or excuse me, new players. I think they'll all be transfers, but it's certainly, it's different. It's hard to adjust to, building relationships, and then they're out the door. There was a player last year or in the spring, who played in the spring game, and while he was still on the field, announced he was in the transfer portal.
Good
So
Lord.
it's just a great player and is going to do some things in the SEC. But it's just so different and so wild. And I'm all for the ability of players to transfer, to make NIL dollars. Go get it. But, it's a little different doing what we do on a day-to-day basis.
And you mentioned in the defense when talking about some of those transfers after spring practice, AJ Halsey and Jeremiah Wilson, both all Big 12 performers in the secondary. Halsey goes to LSU. Jeremiah Wilson goes to Florida State. You still have Latrell McCutcheon back there at cornerback, who Willie Fritz has called. He might be an NFL talent here someday. But were those two losses? I know they really hurt. Are they backbreaking for that secondary unit, or can they rebound?
I think they can rebound. You put a lot of pressure on that group last year. And if you're not putting that kind of pressure on them to pick shutouts, basically, you had to win games scoring 17 and 21 points. You're not going to have a career as a head coach doing that. But I think there's some guys that have transferred in, and then some guys that are growing into roles that maybe don't replace them, but certainly make you not miss them as much.
What do you think the strengths and the weaknesses of that unit are going into the season?
I have no clue.
Hey, he's honest, man. Sometimes with the transfer portal era, it's hard. It's so many transfers over there. It's hard to tell what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah. So I think you're going to be good on the corners. I'm not certain about safety. They have a nickel type position, kind of a hybrid. I'm not 100% certain what's going to happen there, but there is talent, and you're coming into this with a new coordinator. You're coming into this with a new safeties coach. So you've got some things to establish. Thankfully for U of H, you're playing your first FCS game in 6 years. I think Dana in 2019 played the last FCS game here. So you're opening with an FCS team. That'll help. You get Rice in week 2. That'll help. And then the schedule really starts to pick up after that. But they do have the chance this year to get their feet under them and maybe start having a little success early on and let it snowball from there.
So that secondary definitely has a lot of question marks. But Ryan, what do you think about the front seven of this defensive unit? What are some changes you think you could see in Armstrong's scheme compared to Shield Wood's scheme? And then are there any guys you're really excited about on that front seven?
I'm really excited about Carlos Allen. I think he is about to take a step. For 4 or 5 years, U of H was putting guys in the league from the defensive line. And there had been a move to a 4-man front, and I just have never been the biggest proponent of that, just because it's hard to recruit all those guys to U of H. And then now with the portal, it's hard to develop them and keep them. So do you really want to put 4 guys up front? But they have had some success. Shield had success last year. Who else do I think is going to have a bit of a defensive line? There's some young guys, Rashard Sterling, who has a chance to be really, really good. Xavier Stillman was here last year, and he is the most football-looking guy this roster probably had. He's 6'4", he's 280. He's a big man. But it didn't translate onto the field. I think they're going to put him in better positions this year. Oscar Giles is the defensive line coach. The guy's been around for 40 years doing this in one way or another, playing or coaching. And so I really feel like they're going to figure that out, but it's a little early to really kind of nail down what they're going to do. I think they're going to play a lot of guys early and let it shake itself out like that.
I love the phrase "football looking dude." The most football looking dude. I think I'm going to steal that.
I wish someone would describe me like that.
Yeah, well, you're a former quarterback. You're not that's not that's not a position full of football looking dudes. I guess overall, and this is kind of an impossible question. We've been asking it to everybody, but like you mentioned, there's so many moving parts so early in the process. Who knows what these teams are going to look like? But what are the expectations? Like, what do you think a realistic expectation for this football team in 2025 should be?
From my point of view, it should be growth. Can you take that next step on offense where you averaged 14.0 points per game last year? Horrific. Can you take a step? And that means 10, 12, 14 more points a game. And 28 points is not a lot in this era, but it would be a game changer for what this team had last year. But growth would be my thought. Fans think it's 8 wins. I don't know if it's 8 wins because that means you've got to go steal some games on the road. And this team has really saved TCU last year. They have not been competitive on the road for the most part. So you can get wins against Rice and against Stephen F. Austin early, but is the team better on October 1st than it was on August 28th? Is it better on November 1st? Is it better on December 1st? If you can build that way, that opens things up for the next year, 2 years as this talent grows and develops, that you could potentially start to compete for a Big 12 title.
So I got my Dave Campbell's magazine right here next to me, and I'm looking at the schedule and record prediction from Craven. He has them at 6-6. So he's more in line of your thinking where the Houston fans think 8 is the marker. Craven probably thinks the bowl game is the marker, and you also thought 8 was a bit of a stretch. But Ryan, do you agree with the 6-6 record prediction, or what is your early leaning on here when you take a look at the schedule?
I think 6-6 is a reasonable expectation. Your out of conference road game is at Oregon State, or you go to Rice, but your travel game really is Oregon State. There's no reason you can't win all 3 of those. Mm-hmm. You get Colorado early in the year. Who knows? They're making some significant changes. They've got issues all over the place. You get them on a Friday night. Have those guys played in mid-September Houston humidity ever? Probably not. So you've got a chance. You get an off week early in the year, which usually I would be very against, but I really like it where it sets up for U of H. You play 3 games, and then you get a week off, and then you go to Oregon State. And then you get Tech at home and Oklahoma State on the road. I think you could easily win either of those games, potentially both. You could look at a situation where you're 4-1, 5-1 in that era going into the second half of the season. And it does get a little harder, but it's not unmanageable. The last month of the year, you go to UCF, you play TCU in Houston, and then you end the season at Baylor on Thanksgiving weekend. That's where you're going to see, is it 6 wins? Is it 8 wins? Is what you can do in those last 3 weeks. You get a week off after the 10th game. So you go to Central Florida, and then you get a week off, and then you play TCU and Baylor to end it. I think there's a chance of getting to 7 wins. 8, I think, is a stretch goal, to be honest. But if you're 7-5 from where you've been the last 2 years in this league, that's a hell of an upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I look at the schedule long enough, I can talk myself into 6-1.
Right.
Like 6-1 going into Arizona State on October 25th. You don't have to squint too hard to see that, but also you could be 3-3, right? I mean, who knows? Who knows how that goes? One of the things I like about the schedule is that at Oregon State games on a Friday.
Yeah.
And with that long schedule, you get a travel day back. on the other end of it before Tech. So the schedule is beautiful. I think that's why the team total opened up around 6.5 was because you can see the wins there. It's fallen back to 5.5, which I think is more of an over push. But yeah, I think it could be a big step forward for Houston. And you talked about earlier the big step forward in recruiting off the field for the Cougars. I know that was kind of a point of contention. A lot of Coug fans with the Dana Holgorsen era, just like, how are you in Houston and not recruiting high school Houston talent better? Is that the key? Is that the way that this program becomes a Big 12 contender, is just grassroots, old school, recruit the talent around you and develop it up type of situation?
I think that's a huge, huge part of it. But it's also, don't make enemies. There's a lot of guys that are going to want to come back to Houston. You go off to Lubbock or to Stillwater or Fayetteville, and maybe it's not working out. And you still got friends back in Houston, is how I think they're going to work that. It's a very experienced staff. They've got relationships everywhere. That helps. But the high school kids in the state of Texas, in the state of Louisiana, is where they're going to build this. It's what's happened in every sport at U of H when they've had success. Kids from Texas, kids from Louisiana. And with Willie's ties in this state and in Louisiana, it's just the smartest thing you could possibly do. If you're depending on going all over the country looking for guys, it's not going to work. Tanner Koziel, the tight end, the 6'7" tight end, has no ties to Texas. Never played in the state, didn't go to high school here, from the north. And that is such an obscure, weird thing that happened. But everybody else has ties to these two states. And that's how you have to build this at U of H. And it's never going to be go out and snipe the top transfer guys, typically, although Tanner Koziel is the top tight end in the portal. You're just not that program. And so if you can focus yourself on these kids, keeping them in Texas, keeping them coming down I-10 from Louisiana, that's the way to go.
As you're describing this, I can see a scenario where Houston builds itself up into a Big 12 contender year in and year out through the Houston high school ranks. But Craven and I have been obsessed, and I mean absolutely obsessed, with asking this question to all these people on our team preview podcast. What is the third best job in the state of Texas? So Texas and A&M are probably the first two because they're in the SEC, the money, the prestige. But then there's a lot of teams who have a bid for the third best job. And honestly, we have not talked about Houston in that category. Do you think we should be talking about Houston as a potential third best job in Texas?
Today? No. It's not.
Yeah.
Could it be? Sure. But you need a buy-in from the fans and from the corporate community to make this a much better job. Willie Fritz has kind of had to go everywhere and do every job in every program he's ever had. And so he was not a big marquee guy when you got him. But he's going to work hard, and he's very blue collar. And I think that works with this city and the identity that they want to build. Can it be the third best job? Yes, maybe. But this is a program that has still never had a full media rights distribution in the Big 12. So, you're 30 years behind Baylor and Tech in making this Big 12 P4, P5 money. I mean, it's easy to say that it's $750 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how far you are behind at this point. Well, you shouldn't be the third best job, but could it be? Yeah, it could.
How confident are you that the city of Houston can get behind this program and those big money potential donors can kind of bridge the gap that you're talking about between the Techs and maybe even the SMUs and the TCUs of the world?
Well, I don't know how anybody spends money like SMU is doing. It's just drunken and weird.
Bill Armstrong just found 5 billion more tons of oil in Alaska, so it ain't stopping. That came out yesterday.
The city has to get behind them, but it's never going to happen the way it would at other programs. It's going to take a year of success before the city jumps on board. You're just competing with so many different other things that grab your attention. With the NFL and the Astros and the Rockets are coming on, and then you have Rice and the Dynamo soccer, and then you have a pro rugby team. It's just a lot, and it's hard to grab those eyeballs and to keep somebody's attention for a while. U of H basketball has done it, but it's taken 12 years. Mm-hmm. And does it take that long with football? I can't imagine it would. But it's not a quick fix. There is no quick fix at Houston, and you just have to dig in.
You know, as you're talking, I see Houston and SMU as very similar in terms of they're both in a big metro area, Dallas and Houston. They both are trying to become the college football team of that city, but those cities have so much going on around them, and both SMU and Houston spent the vast majority of recent memory not on the P4 level. They're there now, and SMU's having a lot of success in the ACC, and Houston's had a lot of success in basketball in the Big 12. But it does feel like SMU and Houston are a little bit similar. Is there any sort of the blueprint you can follow that Houston can follow from what SMU is doing, or is it not translatable?
I can't see how it translates. They had one great year in the ACC. And I think Rhett Lashley has done a remarkable job. But he has gotten everything he's asked for, and it just doesn't work that way at U of H. It's harder to come by. And, you know, that ACC travel schedule and situation, I think, is going to be unwieldy. So I don't know if they can sustain it, frankly. It's just... You know, U of H and SMU since about the year 2002 have been in a conference together until U of H went to the Big 12. And it's a rivalry. There's some similarities, but it's pretty different. Just your students, your alumni living. It's just a different world, frankly.
I guess what I'm asking is there a big oil field in Houston anywhere that you've been able to see?
Well, I would not be sitting here talking to you two if I knew where an oil field was.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is just the alumni bases and the type of schools they are. Like Houston is Houston City School. It's a public school. It's got a lot of alumni, but they're not the rich kids like SMU is. You know, like those people come from like money they can't even spin through. Type of stuff. And that right now, more than ever, how much money you bring to the table can really influence just like your talent on your roster. And I don't know if Willie Fritz would even know what to do with the resources that Rhett Lashley has. Like, you know, like he'd be like, what do I even do with all this? So yeah, I guess like, I'm trying to think of what my final question here is. Do you feel like this Willie Fritz era, like we're 1 year in, I feel like we all agree that Houston's going to take a big step forward. Do you feel like this was the right hire and you're happy with where Houston is now going into year two? Like what do you feel about the Houston football program year two now compared to maybe year twos and other tenures?
So I think Willie was the right hire at the time because U of H did not need another hotshot coordinator or hotshot Dana Holgerson type. They needed a builder. And that's what Willie has set out to do. And I think what he's doing is building it. And it's not quick. They've had issues, but U of H just moved into a brand new $150 million football operations center on Monday. The players saw it for the first time 48 hours ago. And that's going to change the game some. Dana Holgerson was the impetus of that. And Dana also donated $1 million to it. Thanks, Dana. But it had to come in these stages. You got a stadium in 2014. You got an indoor practice facility in about 2018. Now you open this football operations facility. You have everything right here that you could possibly need. So you just have to keep building staff, keep building the dollars in, build the fan base, and keep recruiting like you're recruiting right now. Willie was the right hire for what U of H needed. And I don't see any reason why it's not still the right hire.
Well, Houston fans, you can check out all of Ryan's work on GoCougs.com, also part of the Republic of Football podcast network, covering Houston 24/7 through the 2025 football season. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the Cougs with us.
Thanks, Carter and Mike. Appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate you, sir.